Hey everybody, and Happy New Year. Welcome to 2023. Today we're going to take a look at Unity Engine and pairing that with a special plugin script thing with Touch OSC. Now, if you're not familiar with Unity Engine, it's been known with a lot of different games, building a lot of games. If you haven't done the cart tutorial, it's super fun. Definitely do that. But there's things like Monument Valley, there's a Call of Duty game, a bunch of other games, some Pokemon Go stuff. All sorts of stuff. Definitely check it out. And we're going to dive in on how you can use Touch OSC to control certain parameters in the engine and the editor. So we're going to have Touch OSC running on an iPad device here, which is connected, wired to my desktop PC, and then we'll connect it with Unity to run everything. So what we're going to need is an in-between, which is called UniOSC. And UniOSC has a lot of different stuff with it. It's pretty well documented. There's a 170-page manual here with a lot of information on how you can build your own scripts with it, and also how you can use the currently created parameters. There's also a GitHub with a lot of information as well. So thanks to Stefan at UniOSC for sending over a version for me to test with Touch OSC. Definitely check out their website. They have a lot of information there. So I've got it downloaded to my system, and what we're going to do is we're going to start in Unity and get it set up, and then we'll build a template. So I've procured UniOSC, and it is in my assets. And now let's jump in to Unity. So this is a blank, empty Unity project that I've created. There's nothing going on yet. But if we go to our package manager, let's go ahead and find, you can see I have all sorts of stuff in here, but what we want is UniOSC. So once you've got that added to your system, you can go ahead and import that into your project, and we'll import everything. So you can see it's imported over here. That took just about 60 seconds. It was really quick to do, and we have a lot of different things to take a look at. So the first thing we're going to want to do is set up our device with Unity. So if we go up to Window, and then you should have UniOSC. If you don't, you'll need to import again, and then open up the OSC editor. And so this shows that there are no connections discovered yet. What we're going to do is we're going to create one. So you can just go ahead and click Create OSC Connection. And here we go. It has some information for us. And if you click on one, in our inspector window pops up all of the information for pairing the connection. So this information is actually going to come to us from Touch OSC. So let's take a look at that. So like I said, I'm using an iPad that is connected to the desktop version. I use the desktop version just to create the template and then put it on my iPad, and then I use the iPad to control Unity. So let's start in the desktop editor real quick. So this is an empty project, and if you don't already know how to connect your iPad with that, you're just going to click this icon up here, and then you probably start out on the client tab, but you go down to server to enable it. And then once you have your iPad set up, you just click on the same icon, and then you should see after you enable the server. So in the iPad here, let's take a look at the connections. There's a lot of different connections: MIDI, OSC, Bridge, and Gamepad. What we're dealing with here is OSC. I've already got some set up, but you're going to have to make sure these are set up for you. So I know that my desktop is, I'm setting to 192.168.0.200. And then I have different send ports. And these are different because I'm using them with different DAW systems. I'm using them with different, OBS, Unity, a bunch of different things, Zoom OSC. So these are just my own settings. So make sure yours are set up. And what we need for UniOSC is the information from the iPad. So right here, let's go ahead and fill this out. Now I know just because my system is set up that I have my input to the desktop is going to be 53000. Now this is the test port that I always use when I'm working on these videos. And my iPad device here is not 200, it's actually going to be .136. And its listening port, the iPad's listening port, is 3333. And that's all there is to it. And now it's all set up. So we just have to go ahead and connect that and you're good to go. And we can exit out of this and let's make sure that the iPad and the desktop are connected. And let's go to the desktop editor real quick and let's just make a general button. Make this red button here and we're going to throw up here in the corner. When a button is created or any object, it comes with messages and you can control that in your preferences in editor and then create default messages. So you can turn that off if you want to. So removing this MIDI message, we're going to work with OSC. And right now there is a message coming from this button called /button1. And so if we push that, we should see it. So let's go to UniOSC and we see this button on our iPad. Let's click trace and you can see this will display any message that we receive. Hit that button and you can see that it sent button 1. So this is just to test and show that messages are coming through. Now, if you were to click create OSC connection again, you would have an additional one in case you were sending from two different objects, like a phone and an iPad or multiple iPads. You could create multiple connections. And creating these multiple connections can be really helpful. So if you imagine you have your main iPad that is controlling all of the parameters that you want to, like an X and Y, you could also have a device that's being controlled with a gyroscope. We're not going to get to that today, but UniOSC has that into it. So you could have a lot of different objects control different parameters with UniOSC, which is really cool. It opens up a lot of different stuff you can do. There's too much stuff for us to cover in just one video, but just know that there's a lot you can do. Oh, and by the way, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone who supported the channel in 2022. It's been amazing to see how this grows, so be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video so we can keep doing more of these types of tutorials. You can also listen to the real life results of using all of this music production stuff. You can listen to my music on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, really anywhere you stream music. Thanks for checking out this video and thanks for supporting the channel. It says there is no OSC mapping file in this project. What you can do is create a file that will save all of your mapping messages, your OSC messages. So if we were to click this, it's going to ask you to create it and it'll go in your project. So I'll just call this Tim's OSC mapping, and then there you go. And what we can do is add different objects because maybe you don't want to type them all in one by one. So let's hit that button. You can see we could just type in the name of the address for each one, or we can do OSC Learn with Learn OSC. Now, if you're familiar with Ableton or Cubase or really any DAW, except for maybe Pro Tools, MIDI Learn is integrated into the DAW. You know, you just click that button, hit the button on your control device, your MIDI keyboard, whatever it is, and then it's automatically mapped. This is going to function exactly the same from TouchOSC. So in our TouchOSC template, let's actually add another button. And we'll make this one blue, just so we can tell them apart. And this one is called button 2. And the reason this is working the way it is, this message is name. So it's the name of the object. But I want to clear that out. So let's delete that. We're going to click on this address error slash here. And this is a constant. We're going to call this /1 / fader 2. And then we'll go back to this one, delete this. And it's a constant 1 / fader 1. And you'll see why we're going to do this in a second. Additionally, let's add an XY. And we're going to make this nice and big. And we'll make this green. And what we want to do, let's get rid of these MIDI messages that are default added. And this message would, by default, control X and Y axis, but we want to change that. So let's add another OSC message. And this first message is going to control X, so let's delete Y. And then opposite of this, let's delete X. And we'll get rid of the name here, and we're going to call this message, let's call it rotate X. And then we'll do the corresponding message here, rotate Y. And I'm just going to do this all lowercase right now. Great, so we have that set up. Now going into UniOSC, let's go ahead and click this Learn OSC button. Now if you hit that button, you can see that the message is coming in, but nothing is learning. What you have to do is click and hold, hit that button, and then faders in there. Let's add another, click and hold, and then fader 2. And now we have our buttons added, and we can turn this off. Now this mapping file is super useful so that we can add this to multiple projects. Editor mode is going to make it so when we use these parameters, it actually functions and operates in the scene while we're working, so we don't have to hit play. So let's leave that where it is right now, and let's take a look at some other things. So let's open up right here in UniOSC. Let's open up the example. And let's open up some scenes here. And what we want is this basic setup. One quick change is that when I open this new project, it overwrites some of the connections. So it may do that for you as well. And you have to change it because I had my original project that I was working with and I had everything mapped there. And then opening up this example project, got to reset everything there. So watch out for that. And if that does happen for you, you just go back into Window, UniOSC, OSC Editor, and then we're just going to set these things back up here. So we're using this first one, and it's calling it Connection 8000, but we're going to use the one that I always use because I know it works for me. Great, and then we'll connect that. You can see it's all live and good to go. So we can close out the editor because we don't need that right now. I'm going to move my camera over here so we can see more easily how we're impacting this. And the first thing I want to play with is the lights. So if you come here to toggle spotlight, this is spotlight 1. We can see very faintly, if I move this up and down, it's actually a little bit stronger. So I'm going to move this down so we can really see it. But we can toggle this on and off. This is /toggle1. So over in TouchOSC, we're going to change our message for our first button. So this is toggle 1. This light is toggle 2. Let's bring this one down so we can see that clearly. And then this one is toggle 3. Now we have 2 buttons that we happen to call fader 1 and fader 2. Let's go ahead and change those to toggle 1 and toggle 2 to control this. Now the other thing we're going to do with these being toggles is let's turn this from momentary to toggle press so that it functions like a toggle. So here I'm going to bring this light down also so we can see it clearly. And you can see that its listening port here for toggle 2 is the message, is our port. So let's press play to check this out. And here in our scene, if we hit the red button, it's on, but let's hit it one more time and we can see we just turned the light off. On, off. Same with toggle 2. Now we're controlling both the lights and we're turning them off. Now something like this could be really useful if you're doing kind of a live filming of animated effects. You could control the lighting live with your iPad device in Unity. So let's take a look at another parameter. Let's select this box here, and this one just because I know it was rotate game object, which, as you know, in Unity, everything's basically an object. So here we have controls for the X and the Y axis. And let's go ahead and change these to what we know that our XY is already set up as. And so if we need a reminder of that, if we look in TouchOSC, we can see that our values are rotate X and then rotate Y. So let's go ahead and set those up. We're going to change this to slash rotate X and slash rotate Y. So let's hit play. You can see that I am moving it on the Y axis with the X, and I'm using it on the X with the Y. It's a little bit inverted for some reason, which I think is a UniOSC issue. So we would have to change that to X and Y. And now if I move side to side, now it's kind of more appropriately moving where I would think it would with my head. But same thing, so we can play with this object and move it around. Super helpful. And we can turn our lights on, turn our lights off. I think something like this would be super useful in animation and especially live recording of your animations. Let's look at another one. So over here on the side, let's go ahead and check out Scale Game Object. Let's build an object in TouchOSC to control the scaling of this. This is currently called /1/fader. Let's change this. I want this to be called /scale. Perfect. So let's go into TouchOSC and then let's add, I'm gonna right click here and we're gonna add a radar. And let's put this like a pinky purple. So as we pull this device out, we'll be able to scale it larger and smaller. So let's give it an OSC message. And we just called it /scale. And that's that. So now back in our UniOSC, we'll hit play here. And you can see that when I move this all the way out, it gets to 1. And if I move it any on the inside, it goes less than 1. So let's actually change this to 2, because what I want it to do is that when it's at the middle, the kind of center here, it stays around the 1, and then I could make it twice as big. And then if I wanted, I could rotate the others, and I can still control the lights. So why are these objects behaving this way with the parameters? That all has to do with the script from UniOSC, which is on a specific object. So you could scale your object, you can rotate it, there's the ability to move it, and now let's look at changing the color. So in TouchOSC here, let's add 3 faders. We're gonna move this up, and then let's just add a fader, and let's make this white. And then we're gonna copy and paste, and we have 3 faders. And let's go ahead and give this an OSC message. Let's call this red. And we'll call this one blue. Or actually, let's call this one green for RGB, green. And then this one is going to be blue. All right, so let's head back into UniOSC. And if we use under the hierarchy tree, if we select this, we know that it's controlling the logo here. So it already has addresses, but we changed ours. So let's update these to what we want them to be, which is /red, /green, /blue. And we know it's already listening to the correct port. So let's go ahead and press play. And if we turn up our devices, and we can play with them now. And set our colors. So as you can see, there's a lot of different ways you could use this that would be very useful. Let's look at how we can make sure that this is working in the editor though, which I think is more useful than having to press play each time. So what you need to make sure is that you go to Window, UniOSC, OSC Editor, and just make sure that this is all connected and that editor mode is on. If that is, then you should be able to move everything around in the editor mode. Turn off our lights here. Actually, let's zoom out and we can see the lights as they're impacting our objects. So this is all well and good. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with the parameters, but what would make this more useful is to have multiple parameters controlled on a single object. So let's add in a sphere. Let's move this out of the way. And you can see we have the scripts here, but let's add a game object. Let's do a sphere and let's move this into a spot where we can see it in the lights. So there we go. We can see that there. And let's add a couple scripts. So let's add the scale. So I'll just search that, drop that onto our sphere, and then let's also move it. So let's search for move and drop that onto it. And now if we look in our inspector, we can see that we can add some OSC messages to control those parameters. So let's just call this scale 2. And then to move the object, let's control it with /move2. We'll just call it that. All right, so let's go into, and actually before we do that, let's change this scale factor to 3 because we really want to see this working. All right, now let's jump back into TouchOSC. All right, so let's add another one of these. So let's take this, copy, paste, move this down here. We'll get all this stuff out of the way. And let's make this one a little orange so we can find it. And this, as we recall, is going to be called scale 2. And then let's add a fader to move this around. Let's go ahead and add a fader. And I'm going to change this from north to east. And move that up. And this, we wanted to call that move 2. All right, so we have our messages and our objects on TouchOSC. Let's go back into UniOSC. And everything should be set. So let's play with our radar here. And you can see we can control the size of that. And then if we move our fader, whoa, it's moving way out. Moving up and down. So it's actually moving on the y-axis. It's not really moving where I would love it to, but it is moving up and down. So all of this is just scratching the surface with what you can do with UniOSC and TouchOSC. There's a lot more you could do, including controlling by class. So maybe we'll take a look at that at a future video. But good luck with trying this stuff. Thanks again to Stefan from UniOSC for giving me access to play with this. It's very cool. As someone who's used Unity before to create different games and demos, something like this would be really useful when you're having to deal with you know, a lot of specifics in any like scenes that you're filming, any like cut scenes that you're doing. So stuff like this I think is very cool, and I look forward to seeing how it develops in the future. So hopefully you learned something today and you can like this video. We did a lot in 2022, so thank you for supporting the channel, and we've got lots more in 2023. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.